Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Lee Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipschutz, managing editor of the National Newsroom at Lee, and co-host of the program with Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal, and a longtime entertainment reporter. Bruce, what do you got for me this week? You kind of kept it thinking like mysterious. What are we going to talk about?
What is he going to talk about? I'll tell you this. I had a lost weekend last week.
Okay.
Wednesday night, I got sick. Thursday, I was so out of it, I couldn't do anything. Friday, I slept for 24 hours. I kid you not, slept for 24 hours. Saturday, I came back and thought, I've got to start watching some things so at least I have content, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I watched The Studio. Have you seen The Studio yet?
I have not. That's the Seth Rogen one on Apple TV Plus, right? Yeah, yeah.
And it's about, what it's like to be in the movie business these days.
Yep.
It was so manic, I felt sicker than I was the day before. It was like jittery. That's how kind of strange that experience was. And so then I decided I had to judge some short films for a competition. It's a festival, a film festival. And I started watching them and I realized there are no new ideas out there. People have sucked up all the ideas, and the ones that they're regurgitating are just bad. I then moved on to The Four Seasons. The Four Seasons is a new series from Tina Fey based on the old Alda Carol Burnett movie from the 1980s. Okay?
Yeah, you talked about that. Yep.
That was a little more calming, but it wasn't enough to kind of make me get in the groove for watching. And I don't know if I hit a watch wall where I think I can't watch anymore. I think I've had it. So by the time Tuesday rolled around, I went to the movies and I went to see Sinners. This is the new Ryan Coogler film that's set in the 30s. It kind of talks about the beginning of blues music. It begins to talk about the devil, vampires. It has a lot of issues that it rolls into one. Okay, so finally, the time that was listed in the listings was wrong. So I'm getting into the theater, and it's too dark. You can't see a thing in the theater. The movie is dark because they started with black screen kind of credits, and I'm stumbling up to where I'm supposed to sit, right? Because now tickets are ticketed. You have to sit in and I get to the seat, and this woman says to me, "That's taken." I said, "No, it's not. It's my seat." She says, "No, somebody's sitting there. You're not sitting there." I said, "No, I am sitting here. This is my seat. I will sit here." And she had her purse. She had popcorn there. It was all set up as kind of her side table.
Oh,
and
geez.
We came to almost fisticuffs. Well, it's in the dark and I can't see anything, right? And then I have to sit next to this lady for 2.5 hours who's mad at me because I've taken her table away. But it got me to thinking, have you ever had those close encounters in the movie theater where you just want to start screaming and be that person?
Yeah. Yes, I have. It's happened.
And what do you do?
Rather than be annoyed, I would try to find somewhere else to go. But yeah, some of these people are, what are we going to do? Get security involved? Did you get security involved?
No, and it ends up they're like, no offense, but they're high school kids that are working at the theaters.
Right, exactly.
So they don't have the stun gun that's with them or anything else that might kind of resolve the issue. So you just stand your ground is what you end up doing.
You have to, yeah.
But yeah, and I had gone to, and you'll love this, it was a Star Wars film with a friend who's a middle school teacher.
Okay.
And in front of us were these kids who were talking incessantly. And he just got up and he said to them, "If you don't shut up right now, you're out of here. And I'll stand here and kick you out myself." And he scared them. And it was like, I think I need to go with a middle school teacher in the future because a middle school teacher has that kind of hold over kids who end up being very very mouthy. The other thing I hate is when it's an R-rated film and people are allowed to bring their babies or toddlers in who have no interest in the movie, aren't watching the movie, and they're not watching them. So they
Mm-hmm.
let the kids run all the way around the theater and they're screaming and yelling and running. And you think, this has got to end. What is this? And this will kill the mainstream movie going experience better than anything else. And I think they do need to have some kind of rules in place, not just clean up after yourself or put your feet down if your feet are on top of the seat in front of you. But yeah, and so it just got to me thinking, like, what kind of rules do you want in place in your theater of choice?
The theater I go to now is very rarely busy because it's just I don't live in a very populated area. It's one of the older AMC theaters. It's not going to be upgraded. I like the concept of theaters that you purchase your ticket, you purchase your specific seat. And I think that no matter how busy or how quiet a theater is, you should be selling every ticket based on the seat that either is available or you would like to select. I don't like, even if there's only gonna be 6 people in the theater, because it's just it's a Tuesday afternoon and it's a matinee. If I want to sit in the 19th row, dead center, I want to be able to pick that seat, and that's it. That's my seat. So I think that's a big one for me. And that also gets around those issues. I can tell you, I remember distinctly the most crowded theater I had ever been in my life. Do you remember The Perfect Storm, the one about the boat, the two hurricanes were colliding, right? I went with my brother. It was still when I was living in Jersey. He was still living in Jersey. So he may have been in high school. I was in college. I don't know. Or we were both something like that. Maybe I was just out of college and he was just getting out of college. And we went to the theater and we ran into kind of that problem where, we go to sit down somewhere and someone's like, we are holding, these are seats, but they were like legitimately taken. And then the people came back with their popcorn and we're like, oh, I guess so we ended up having to move to the like very first row that nobody wants to sit in, and kind of just like stare up at the screen for 2 hours. So, back then, if we would have just been able to pick our seats or at least see that the show was going to be so crowded, we were like, let's go somewhere else, or let's pick a different movie, right? So I think like the ability to pick your seats no matter what is huge. I mean, you pick your seats for a concert or a baseball game or a football game or wherever, do it for a movie theater. And I also think, like, I don't know if this is so much a rule or it's just something I would like to see more theaters do, is better arrange the seating. I don't think you need to have as many seats in the theater as you used to have, because there's not as many people going in general. Like, you get so many empty seats up front, nobody sits in them. I wish they would just kind of reconfigure things. I mean, maybe they're doing this now as they're building new or remodeling some of the more popular and they're going to the recliners and all that stuff. But we don't need like 600 seats in every theater anymore. I think like paring it down and making it a more intimate setting, but that's a little bit different. That's not quite a rule. That's just more of like a personal preference.
Okay.
I'd like to see.
So you picked your seat.
Yep.
You go to your seat and the people next to you say, do you mind moving so that we can have somebody sit here? And then you go sit in his seat. We're with this other guy and we'd like him to sit with us. Do you let him do that? Or do you say,
I would say this is where karma kind of works in your favor sometimes. I've been in situations where I've had people ask if I would mind switching seats, and actually, like, the seats that I ended up switching to were better than what I had to begin with for whatever reason. So I think if it's not an unreasonable request, I would be okay with it. So if, like, it's like they bought their seats, I bought my seat, they called a buddy and they're like, yeah, we're going to movies. Like, why don't you come? And if it all works out where you're kind of in this weird situation, but if it's in the spot where like you're there with a friend and you both have seats, it's super crowded, and it's like, you're getting bumped to somewhere weird. I'd be like, I appreciate that you want to sit with your friend. Regretfully, I'm going to decide to stay here, but maybe there's somebody else here you would like to switch with.
You're a diplomat.
I am.
I just say no.
No. Yeah.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Well, it's, because you could get that front row.
Yeah.
They could switch you to the front row. And really, do you need to be apart from your friend for 2 hours that it's going to make? Because you'll probably be talking.
Right. Yeah. At that point, you probably don't want to sit next to him anyway.
Right.
Because that's what they're going to do. Have you ever been to Wrigley Field?
No, I have not.
So Wrigley Field, where the Cubs play, it's one of the oldest. I think it's the second oldest baseball stadium still in operation. The sight lines there are a little bit weird. So, some places you sit, they're fine. But if you're sitting on the first level near the back, the upper grandstand comes down so low that it impedes your vision of the outfield. And there was one, so you can see, they have TV monitors up so you can kind of see the outfield, but you're very limited in what you can see. There was a year where I went with my dad and I think a brother, and we got seats and we ended up near the back. It was like the last row at Wrigley Field. And we're like, this isn't good, but we're here and we're just going to enjoy it the best we can. It is what it is. And we're there. We're visiting fans. We're fans of the New York Mets going to see the Chicago Cubs. And somebody comes up to us and they said, "Hey, you're Mets fans. We're Mets fans too. My friend can't sit in the seats that we have because of whatever." It was like they didn't have a wheelchair, but there was something which made them getting around difficult. And they said it would be much more convenient for our friend if we could actually sit where you are. And we were looking to trade with a Mets fan. Would you want to take our seat? We have 3 seats. You have 3 seats. You want to just switch seats? And we're like, sure. Because they were sitting like way down. And we switched, and we ended up moving like 15, 20 rows up, and we got out of underneath that overhang. But that's where karma can kind of help you too.
So you're an optimist.
I am. Not really.
I'm a pessimist.
I'm a horrible pessimist, but I'm like, sometimes in social situations I try to be nicer.
Okay, what about a baby crying?
We're at a movie theater?
Uh-huh.
Why is there a baby at a movie theater?
Because we didn't get a sitter.
Then you don't go to the movies. I'm like, that's kind of like, look, I have kids. My wife and I didn't go to a theater for a few years when they were little. And if we were able to line up a family or a friend to watch the kids and we could get out to the movies. I think there's certain social situations where respectfully you need to not bring the kids, and if you can't get a sitter, you probably, like, in the movie theater is something that no child needs to be at. And I think I don't know how you address that. Like, you go to the 16-year-old and tell them, like, can you boot the new mom out with her kid? I don't know how you do it.
She's changing a diaper.
Yeah.
Help.
I think I think there's some people out there that kind of they just need to accept the situation and be like, I've got little kids. It's one thing to fly in a plane. Like, I had to fly in a plane with kids, with babies. It is what it is. You can't avoid it. You just hope for the best. You expect the worst, but you hope for the best. And you just kind of roll with it. But like a movie theater, yeah. I mean, if you go to a baseball game or a sporting event, you can get up and you can walk around. I don't care. I brought my kids to games when they were little, but not a movie theater.
They need a crying room in the movie theater, right?
Yes. Yeah, you have to. If that's going to happen, you got to get up and leave the theater and take care of business.
Okay, so you're in the old configuration where we didn't have recliners.
Yeah,
there were seats that were right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if somebody started kicking the back of your seat?
I don't enjoy that. And
do you say something? Do you let it go? Do you turn around and give a bad look?
I turn around, and I will still do that. I will if it's like an accident, like you get those accidental ones where somebody's kind of coming through, or they're just shifting their themselves. If it's just one time, I just let it go. If you're sitting and it's like a family and little Billy is just like swinging his legs all over the place, I will turn around and kind of give you the look, and it's the look.
Well, and I've had it where I've grabbed a leg and I said, cut it out. And the mom said, he's just a child. Let him do that. I said, no, he's kicking the seat.
Move him somewhere else then.
Right.
Let him kick somebody else's seat.
Kick your seat,
kick
right?
Your seat.
I'll let me get behind you and I'll kick your seat and see what happens.
I would actually, that might be what I do, is if it became a problem and somebody was that rude about it, if I could, I would actually get up, move behind her, and then just start kicking her seat. Then police are called, but I think I might do that.
Okay. Talkers, people who talk during a movie.
Yeah.
We've become so used to talking because we watch at home.
Right.
And we can pause things. We can do a lot of things. But what if somebody is just having a whole conversation during the course of a movie or saying things like, what'd you say?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. What'd you say? Repeat that. And then they repeat the whole thing. And you think, we're already a reel behind on this.
Right.
Do you say something there? Or is it the look again?
It's probably a combination of the look. Like, excuse me, do you mind not talking? I guess I think it becomes situational. Like, is it? I've been at theaters where you kind of like whisper to your friend or your spouse or whatever, where it's like you think you know what's going to happen. And you go like, he's going to kill her. You do that because you think you figured it out. You know what's going to happen. So, and I did that one time with one of those Star Trek movies, one of the remake ones with that they kind of relaunched in the last 10 years or whatever, and there was a character who was like Khan, like the Wrath of Khan guy, right. And I turned to my friend, I was like, it's Khan. It's like, whoa. And we didn't know what was going to happen at that point. So I think if it's little things like that, it's okay. If you're having side conversations, again, it's like the baby, you don't need to be there to have a conversation. Please leave or do something else.
Okay, what about food?
Mm-hmm.
What if they spill on you?
Is it accidental? I mean, it happens. Somebody's walking and you bump in and the popcorn half spills. And I could roll with it.
What about the nachos?
Yeah, I mean, once we start getting into sticky stuff or things that might stain, I might have I don't want a cold soda on my head. That's a little bit. I've never had that happen. Have you?
I've been spilled on.
Yeah,
sure. Come on. When you're seeing as many movies as I do.
Yeah.
I think they kind of know, though. Keep a distance. He's crabby.
That becomes just a situation. If it's truly accidental, and they weren't goofing around, it's just, it is what it is. It's kind of, it happens, right?
I dress as if an accident is going to happen.
Okay.
So I'll wear sweatpants and a t-shirt or whatever. Then I'm ready for it. Now, when you see people coming in with blankets, for God's sakes.
Yep.
What is this?
Right. Right.
So it's, those are those situations where you think, okay, how do we make the movie going experience better? Would you add anything? Would you, when they started serving meals in theaters?
Yep.
Interesting concept, but I don't think I need it.
Yeah, I think the problem I have I went to one of those and it wasn't one of the big chains. It wasn't like an AMC or a Regal or anything. It was a very small kind of like family-owned theater where they were showing, it was like if you drove by the building, you wouldn't even know it was a movie theater because it was just, it looked like more of just a random storefront kind of thing. And they had maybe 2 theaters in the building. It had a very large screen, but not as large as a normal theater. And they had maybe 10 rows of seats, if that, maybe even fewer. And it was kind of set up in a way where there were some comfortable chairs with tables in front of you for each row. And before the movie started, they brought you menus and you put in your order and they brought you your food kind of like, I want to say the movie had already started when the food arrived, but it wasn't, it wasn't too deep into the movie. You were past the previews, but it was kind of like the movie has started. It was fun to do it one time. We never went back. I mean, part of it was just like, frozen chicken nuggets kind of thing. It's not, It wasn't like highbrow culinary stuff. It was somebody shopping at Costco for the industrial sized bags of chicken nuggets and like burger patties and things like that. So it wasn't a gourmet meal. I think the concept's okay, but it's distracting.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea that I don't think has legs for the amount of money they charge.
Right.
They charge you more for those kind of theaters.
Yes.
And then there's almost the obligation you have to get something to eat because why are you there?
Right.
And, okay. And then there's tipping.
Yeah.
Do I want to mess with tipping? I don't want to mess with tipping.
Yeah.
I am European in that way.
Right.
Let's go with no tipping so I don't have to try and figure this sucker out. I did go to one of those theaters though, and I was near Allison Janney, and we shared tater tots. So I can say that I ate in a theater, had tater tots with Allison Janney, and I don't even remember what the movie was. But there you go.
So also, how are you refilling during the, you have your beer and your burger to start, and then you're like, I want another burger, or I want a dessert, or I want another beer. How are you ordering it then? Because
I think you do have a light that you can turn on, and they'll come over and get you more.
Okay.
But by the time you see the bill at the end of the night, you go, holy hell, why did we come here for our night out?
Yeah. It's almost a little, to me, that's just too distracting for that type of scenario. I mean, I like the idea of, I've been to sporting events where you can either order off of your app, or I've sat a few times in like higher end seats where they send over, like waiter service,
Sure.
It's like borderline, and they come over and they're like, what would you like? And I'm like, well, I'll take a hot dog and nachos. It's,
I would like Le Gourmet dog.
Yes, I would like Le Nachos with extra jalapenos, please. But that's also like a sporting event is a little bit of a different scenario where you don't have to be as in tune with you don't want to miss the action, but especially a sport like baseball where it's kind of leisurely and you're having side conversations with people the whole time, or football.
And the lights are on.
Yeah, the lights are on. Football is a sport where it's like they run a play and then there's 30 seconds of nothing, and then they run another play, and then it's a commercial break, and you've got 3 minutes before they play again. So I think, like, to me, sports, it's fine, but the movie theater experience, that's not something I want.
Okay, should we have liquor in movie theater?
Absolutely, yes. I like, the more the merrier, drink responsibly, of course, but I honestly
do we cut them off after a certain point?
Yeah,
it's
like the
2 drink minimum.
No drinks after the third quarter. No ordering alcohol after the 7th inning. I think you got to judge it where the movie theater is like, all right, it's a 2-hour movie. Maybe 90 minutes in, you cut off alcohol sales. You don't want anyone getting liquored up or anything, or drunk or disorderly or anything. But if I've had a hard day at work, or it's been a fun weekend, you're out with friends, you want to have a cocktail, I have no problem with it, and I think it's fun. It makes a good experience.
At what point do you say then that seat is taken? You can't sit there.
Yeah. Well,
is that part of it? The liquor. Okay.
Yeah.
Should you have to clean up after yourself?
Yeah, I used to be kind of like just leave it on the ground and the kids will come clean it up. I think we're sophisticated enough where we can find the garbage cans outside the theater. Just pick it up and be respectful.
Part of you says, well, we're cutting somebody out of a job, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that. It's just being cognizant of your own area. They'll still have enough to do because there's stray popcorn everywhere.
Right. I mean, they've got to clean up. Everyone's dropping popcorn all day. And who coined that term? Do you remember it? It was, what show? Was it like Not Necessarily the News or something like that, where someone came up with the term Cinemuck? Cinemuck. It's that stuff you step on when you're at the theater, and you get, it's like sticky. So as you're walking, it's not as much a problem now as it used to be. But I remember you would go into a theater in like the 1980s, and you would be walking.
Glued to the
It would be,
floor.
yes, and the older the theater, the worse it was. You would go to those second run theaters where they're showing movies that have been out of like the first run for 3 months, and you're paying $2 to get in to see it. Those floors, you don't want anything. You don't want to see like a black light on anything. You don't even want to know. You just like don't bend over. If something falls on the ground, it's gone. You
I
drop your
assume
keys out on the. You drop your keys. You're calling. You're going to the payphone and calling somebody. Be like, I need a new set of keys. I just dropped them on the theater floor. I'm not touching them.
I did lose a set of keys in one of the recliners.
Oh,
And I pulled it open to get the keys because I thought I got to have the keys. To hell with the movie. That's how it was. I got to have my keys because I got to get out of here. And I found lots of change in there.
mm.
And I thought maybe I should be doing a chair check before I sit down, lift up the recliner, see how much money's underneath there. I might make enough for the next show.
Yeah. There you go.
It's weird. But yeah, so those are the things that are, when we had Minecraft just recently, it has been a free-for-all for especially young, unsupervised kids to just throw crap all over the place. And I do think that that's something parents could teach their kids is, it doesn't hurt to pick up after yourself. And maybe somebody will think better of you because you did.
Right.
But anyway, I had all these must be those fever visions that I had as I'm sicker than a dog.
Weekend. Your Lost Weekend, though, does not compare with John Lennon's. His Lost Weekend took 18 months. He left Yoko one day and went to LA for 18 months and then
I
came
had
back
to be to
again.
work on Monday, so you know how that goes.
Right.
You can't delay it too much.
When you're a former Beatle, your Lost Weekend can be 18 months. When you're Bruce Miller,
you do get that by.
It's 3 days. If I'm a movie theater chain and I'm trying to compete with streaming on your couch, I think the things you have to look at this point are shrinking the size of your theaters. And I don't mean shrinking the size of the screen, but I think it's more of making the experience more intimate, having larger seats, recliner seats, more comfortable, so you're further away from people you don't want to necessarily be next to. It's rare. I get, Minecraft movie is one of those exceptions. So if you want every movie theater to have one theater where you can just stuff them in for like that big release, but those big releases are so few and far between now. I think you just have to go for like, let's if we have a cinema of 12 theaters, let's say, you make 10 of them intimate. You have one or two of them, make those the big ones for the big one, but otherwise you make it a small experience. You make it a little bit more casual, introduce things like, a little bit more alcohol, better refreshments, make it an experience. It has to be like going to a baseball game, a concert, an NFL game, whatever. And they always say it, even with the sporting event, the best view for a sporting event is at home. It's on your couch. You can see more watching it on TV, but there's an experience to going to a baseball game or to a concert or to a football game. That's what you're paying for. So you need to be able to pay for the experience. And I think that's what movie theaters need to do.
I am a big merch person.
Oh,
I love merch. And if they had merch at movie theaters, I might be willing to buy.
Mm-hmm.
I love the movie. I want the T-shirt, not just the popcorn box that looks like the Dune worm. Maybe the poster. I might want the poster too. And if they offered something different like that, I think it could be interesting. This was just the stuff that came to mind. And maybe if the lady hadn't been mean to me and I wasn't like fighting back, I wouldn't have gone off on the deep end. But now look at this week. We lost the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to be just like the movie Conclave? Will Conclave become a template for what they're actually doing? Or is it so far off the beam, everybody go, no, it's not at all like that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just thinking after the Pope died, I'm like, I gotta watch Conclave now. And I think it's available on streaming.
It should be.
Yeah. So I can watch it on I think I might watch it on Prime Video this weekend and check it out.
I
Yeah.
think you'll find it's very fascinating how they go about it, and you think this is kind of
Mm-hmm.
it's just one room basically.
Yeah.
But the drama, the politics, all of it, it's fascinating, and that's a way of kind of marrying real life with fiction.
Do you remember a few years ago there was I think it was on HBO. They did the young Pope and then they followed it up with the new Pope. Jude Law
Jude
was
Law. Yeah.
what do you remember that?
I remember getting a pair of Pope shoes. And they sent the slippers, the red slippers that they wear.
Yeah.
And it was they're from the whoever does the shoes for the real guys. That's where they got them.
Yeah. That was such a strange show. I don't even know what to think of it. It was really fascinating because I think they added a lot of true elements to it of how they go about, the politicking behind the scenes. But beyond that, it was such a strange show.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
watched.
when you see this, you'll say, I could see how this is how it happens and how they, kind of backbite and say, oh, I hear bad things about him. He has a lot of trouble. There are skeletons there. And then somebody comes from, behind and brings some more information. And so you're kind of put off guard about who actually should get this job. And when they come to a conclusion, it's fascinating what they pick.
I think I'm going to watch it. Yeah, I think I'm going to watch it because it is appropriate.
Have you been watching a lot then over the holiday weekend or not?
I have been. We are caught up on am I an episode? I may be an episode behind on The Last of Us. I think I've seen one. Caught up on Handmaid's Tale. I think I've seen all of them that have been released, and I am about halfway through the released episodes of Andor season 2. So here's my quick takes on all. Last of Us seems really good. I'm looking forward to where this season is going. I like the kind of the new tension there is with the characters. Andor season 2, I've talked about this prior, but I feel strongly about it now. It remains both Andor and the movie Rogue One, which Andor season 2 ultimately runs into at the end. They'll kind of connect, and then it connects to A New Hope, the original movie. It's the best programming Disney has done with Star Wars since purchasing the franchise. It is so good. And even I love The Mandalorian, but even these Andor episodes, they feel cinematic. It feels like theater, like movie theater quality, whereas some of the other shows like Mandalorian and a little bit with Ahsoka, they feel big budget, but they still feel like a TV show, if that makes sense. Yeah, it doesn't feel quite the same. Andor is just so good. And The Handmaid's Tale, it needs to end. It's like I like the season so far, but it feels so repetitive at this point. Like we're doing this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're back here again, and same characters kind of putting themselves in weird situations. And it's just like I don't know if I could take it anymore.
I haven't seen you forever, right?
Yep.
So oh my God, it's Terry.
Right.
I give you a big hug, and then we spend a good 15 minutes with exposition about what you were doing and what I was doing. And I don't really need that.
Yeah.
I don't need to know. I think I have enough of an idea that you guys can go be creepy or whatever on your own.
Yeah. And I think, I understand some of the direction they're trying to take with it. Gilead is trying to normalize relations so they can kind of open up the border again, and because they need to do trade and things like that. But the number of, ex-Americans who seem willing to go back to there, it just seems kind of unrealistic. And I understand too with, with June Osborne, she's trying to get her daughter, who is still stuck in Gilead. So I understand her desire to go back and try to do that, but it just feels like there's too many people that are, you know, it's like you get out in real life, like people leave oppressive regimes and they're not like, I'm going to go back to North Korea to get my uncle out or my brother out, or they don't. I mean, it's just how it is. And
they send a mail order with money in it and say,
right,
good luck.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, so it's kind of like it hits that level of just, I don't believe it anymore. You know, that like the first couple seasons were so strong, and it just feels like it's been winding down this bizarre path. And you know, I hope they don't make this mistake with the spin-off series. I think they just need to come in and say, we're going to do 4 seasons and be done, or 3 seasons, whatever it is.
Well, and maybe that's what happened with some of these Star Wars series, where they said, you know, we could drag this out for quite a few years, or we could cut to the chase and realize we don't need 10 years to tell a story.
And that's what Andor did. I mean, the reality was they were supposed to do 5 seasons. Each season was supposed to be 1 year leading up to, you know, basically Rogue One and the original Star Wars movie. And they ended up saying, they did 1 season, which was a year. And now they're doing 12 episodes, and each, you know, you have 3 episode blocks are making up a year. So we're getting basically the equivalent of like 4 movies right here, you know, but you
just don't have to wait for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think sometimes I understand. I think with The Handmaid's Tale, they had a hit, right? They did 1 season and it was a massive hit because the show was so good. So then they expanded it, and we're going to keep doing season after season. And they should have had a stronger start to finish plan and wrapped it up sooner.
Well, and then you had, you know, the COVID problems, you had strikes, you had all those things kind of slowing the momentum. So it didn't have that kind of fresh run. That's where I think it is good. Like The White Lotus, for example, where they shoot it all.
Yep.
And then it's just a matter of how they distribute it or how they parse it out to the public. But I think if you have to wait, and I think that's what's going to hurt. I said this before, Shogun is going to have this lapse now because they didn't have it all ready for a second year. And it could be they never will.
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly.
It's just, you have to have a plan, and I don't know that they all do. But
yeah.
So there's my 2 cents worth for this week. I hope that was enough for you.
There you go. I mean, we came into it not knowing if we'd have a show. Like, what, are we just going to say hiya, baya, you know, that kind of thing? And yeah, look at that. We have a full show. You're a genius, Bruce.
Isn't that it? Well, no, it was being sick and being forced not to watch things because I was so out of it that made me start thinking in other terms. But I did realize that there are things that I guess I haven't gotten off my chest about the experience.
Yeah.
And it is fun. I still love going to the movies.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter who sits next to me. It is fun to go there, and that shared experience, especially when you're all laughing together or where something surprises you, even in Minecraft, it can surprise you. That you don't get anywhere else. And I think we can't lose sight of that. And I think we always will need theaters.
Absolutely.
I think it'll always be a big part of, at least it was a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And I must tell you, I first started watching movies when I was in a crib. My parents wanted a night out, and their next door neighbors owned a movie theater. And so they put me in one of those strollers, and they brought it to the theater, and they parked it in the back of the theater. And I just watched movies while they were doing whatever. That's how they got rid of Bruce. And that's how I first got seeing movies. And I do have vivid memories of certain movies from that period, which is really weird.
Yeah.
But I think it does leave an impression.
So
if Rita Hayworth ever comes on the screen, just know she's mine.
My parents told me years ago, they took me to, it was like a drive-in theater. It was my first movie. It was sometime in the mid-70s, and I have no idea, but it was like some weird horror movie or something that they went to go see, and that stuff. That's probably why I don't like horror movies. Like I was 6 months old, I saw something scary and it freaked me out, and stunted me forever.
Yeah, I still lock the basement, so just know.
There you go.
That's how it rolls.
All right. Well, thanks again for listening, and we'll be back again next week with another episode of Streamed and Screened.